Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Here we are again, every Sunday here in ISKCON Vrindavan. We come to read Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada here in his sacred rooms every Sunday from 4:30 to 5:30. So if you're online, you can open up your Krishna book to chapter 70, Lord Krishna's daily activities. And as always, we offer our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vansha Kalpaturbyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So if you're with us online, you can follow along with the subtitles below the screen. It's very easy to hear better when you see the words sometimes. Okay, chapter 70, Lord Krishna's daily activities. From the Vedic mantras, we learn that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do. Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. But if the Supreme Lord has nothing to do, how can we speak of the activities of the Supreme Lord? From the previous chapter, it is clear that no one can act the way Lord Krishna does. We should clearly note this fact. The activities of the Lord should be followed, but they cannot be imitated. For example, Krishna's ideal life as a householder can be followed, but if one wants to imitate Krishna by expanding into many forms, that is not possible. We should always remember, therefore, that Lord Krishna, although playing the part of a human being, simultaneously maintains the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can follow Lord Krishna's dealings with his wives as an ordinary human being, but his dealings with more than 16,000 wives at one time cannot be imitated. The conclusion is that to become ideal householders, we should follow in the footsteps of Lord Krishna as he displayed his daily activities, but we cannot imitate him at any stage of our life.
Lord Krishna used to lie down with his 16,000 wives, but he would also rise from bed very early in the morning, 3 hours before sunrise. By nature's arrangement, the crowing of the cocks warns of the Brahma Muhurta hour. There is no need of alarm clocks. As soon as the cocks crow early in the morning, it is to be understood that it is the time to rise from bed. Hearing that sound, Krishna would get up from bed, but his rising early was not very much to the liking of his wives. The wives of Krishna were so much attached to him that they would lie in bed embracing him. And as soon as the cocks crowed, Krishna's wives would be very sorry and would immediately condemn the crowing.
In the garden within the compound of each palace, there was parijat flowers. The parijat is not an artificial flower. we remember that Krishna brought the Parija trees from heaven and implanted them in all his palaces. Early in the morning, a mild breeze would carry the aroma of the Parijat flower, and Krishna would smell it just after rising from bed. Due to this aroma, the honeybees would begin their humming vibration, and the birds also would begin their sweet chirping sounds. Altogether, it would sound like the singing of professional chanters engaged in offering prayers to Krishna. Although Srimati Rukmani Devi, the first queen of Lord Krishna, knew that Brahma Muhurta is the most auspicious time in the entire day, she would feel disgusted at the appearance of Brahma Muhurta because she was not very happy to have Krishna leave her side in bed. Despite Srimati Rukmani Devi's disgust, Lord Krishna would immediately get up from bed exactly on the appearance of Brahma Muhurta. An ideal householder should learn from the behavior of Lord Krishna how to rise early in the morning, however comfortably he may be lying in bed embraced by his wife.
After rising from bed, Lord Krishna would wash his mouth, hands, and feet, and would immediately sit down and meditate on himself. This doesn't mean, however, that we should also sit down and meditate on ourselves. We have to meditate upon Krishna, Radha Krishna. That is real meditation. Krishna is Krishna himself. Therefore, he was teaching us that Brahma Muhurta should be utilized for meditation on Radha Krishna. By such meditation, Krishna would feel very much satisfied, and similarly, we will also feel transcendentally pleased and satisfied if we utilize the Brahma Muhurta period to meditate on Radha and Krishna. And if we think of how Sri Rukmini Devi and Krishna acted as ideal householders to teach the whole human society to rise early in the morning and immediately engage in Krishna consciousness. There is no difference between meditating on the eternal forms of Radha Krishna and chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. As for Krishna's meditation, he had no alternative but to meditate on himself. The object of meditation is Brahman, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna himself is all three. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. The localized Paramatma is his plenary partial expansion, and the all-pervading Brahman effulgence is the personal rays of his transcendental body. Therefore, Krishna is always one, and for him there is no differentiation. That is the difference between an ordinary living being and Krishna. For an ordinary living being, there are many distinctions. An ordinary living being is different from his body and is different from other species of living entities. A human being is different from other human beings and different from the animals. Even in his own body, there are different bodily limbs. We have our hands and legs, but our hands are different from our legs. The hand cannot act like the leg, not can the leg act like the hand. The ears can hear, but the eyes cannot, and the eyes can see, but the ears cannot. All these differences are technically called Sojatiya Vijatiya.
The bodily limitation whereby one part of the body cannot act as another part is totally absent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between his body and himself. He is completely spiritual, and therefore there is no difference between his body and his soul. Similarly, he is not different from his millions of incarnations and plenary expansions. Baladeva is the first expansion of Krishna, and from Baldev expand Sankarshan, Vasudev, Pradyumna, and Anuruddha. From Sankarshan, there is an expansion of Narayan, and from Narayan, there is a second quadruple expansion of Sankarshan, Vasudev, Pradyumna, and Anuruddha. Similarly, there are innumerable other expansions of Krishna, but all of them are one. Krishna has Krishna has many incarnations such as Lord Nrsimha, Lord Boar, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise. But there is no difference between Krishna's original two-handed form, like that of a human being, and these incarnations of gigantic animal forms. Nor is there any difference between the action of one part of his body and that of another. His hands act as his legs. His eyes can act as his ears, or his nose can act as another part of his body. Krishna's smelling and eating and hearing are all the same. We limited living entities have to use a particular part of the body for a particular purpose. But there is no such distinction for Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Agyani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. Krishna can perform the activities of one limb with any other limb. So, by analytical study of Krishna and his person, it is concluded that he is the complete whole. When he meditates, therefore, he meditates on himself. Self-meditation by ordinary men, designated in Sanskrit as hum, is simply imitation. Krishna may meditate on himself because he is the complete whole, but we cannot imitate him and meditate on ourselves. Our body is a designation superimposed upon our self, the soul. Krishna's body is not a designation. Krishna's body is also Krishna. There is no existence of anything foreign in Krishna. Whatever there is in Krishna is also Krishna. He is therefore the supreme, indestructible, complete existence or the supreme truth.
Krishna's existence is not relative existence. Everything else but Krishna is a relative truth. But Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna does not depend on anything but himself for his existence. Our existence, however, is relative. For example, only when there is the light of the sun, the moon, or electricity are we able to see. Our seeing, therefore, is relative, and the light of the sun and moon and electricity is also relative. They are called illuminating only because we see them as such. But dependence and relativity do not exist in Krishna. His activities are not dependent on anyone else's appreciation, nor does he depend on anyone else's help. He is beyond the existence of limited time and space, and because he is transcendental to time and space, he cannot be covered by the illusion of Maya, whose activities are limited. In the Vedic literature, we find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multi-potencies. Since all such potencies are emanations from him, there is no difference between him and his potencies. Certain philosophers say, however, that when Krishna comes, he accepts a material body. But even if it is accepted that when he comes to the material world, he accepts a material body. It should be concluded also that because the material energy is not different from him, this body does not act materially. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said therefore that he appears by his own internal potency, Atma Maya.
Hare Krishna. After his meditation, Krishna is called the Supreme Brahman because he is the cause of creation, the cause of maintenance, and the cause of dissolution. Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva are different expansion of these material qualities. All these material qualities can act upon the conditioned soul. But there is no such action and reaction upon Krishna because these qualities are all simultaneously one with and different from him. Krishna himself is simply Satchidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, and because of his conceivable greatness, he is called the Supreme Brahman. His meditation on Brahman or Paramatma or Bhagwan is on himself only and not on anything else beyond himself. This meditation cannot be imitated by the ordinary living entity.
After his meditation, the Lord would regularly bathe early in the morning with clear, sanctified water. Then he would change into fresh clothing, cover himself with a wrapper, and engage in his daily religious functions. Out of his many religious duties, the first was to offer oblations into the sacrificial fire and silently chant the Gayatri mantra. Lord Krishna, as the ideal householder, executed all the religious functions of a householder without deviation. When the sunrise became visible, the Lord would offer specific prayers to the sun god. The sun god and other demigods mentioned in the Vedic scriptures are described as different limbs of the body of Lord Krishna, and it is the duty of the householder to offer respects to the demigods and great sages, as well as the forefathers.
As it is said in Bhagavad Gita, Lord has no specific duty to perform in this world, and yet he acts just like an ordinary man, living an ideal life within this material world. In according to the Vedic ritualist principle, the Lord would offer respect to the demigods, the regulative principle by which the demigods and their forefather are worshipped is called Tarpana, which means pleasing. One's forefather may have taken a body on another planet, but by performance of the Tarpana system, they become very happy. Wherever they may be, it is a duty of the householder to make his family members happy. And by following this Tarpana system, can make his forefather happy also. As perfect explanatory householder, Lord Sri Krishna followed this Tarpana system and offered respectful obeisances to the elderly superior members of his family.
His next duty was to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Every day, Lord Krishna used to give many groups of 13,084 cows. Each of the cows was decorated with a silken cover and pearl necklace. Their horns were covered with gold plating and their hooves were silver plated. All of them were full of milk due to having their firstborn cows with them, and they were very tame and peaceful. When the cows were given in charity to the Brahmanas also were given nice silken garments, and each was given a deer skin and sufficient quantity of sesame seeds. The Lord is generally known as Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, which means that his first duty is to see to the welfare of the cows and the Brahmanas. Thus he used to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas with opulent decorations and paraphernalia. Then, wishing for the welfare of all living entities, he would touch auspicious articles such as milk, honey, ghee, that is clarified butter, gold, jewels, and fire. Although the Lord is by nature very beautiful, due to the perfect figure of the transcendental body, he would dress himself in a yellow garments and put on his necklace of Kaustuba jewels. He would wear flower garlands, smear his body with the pulp of sandalwood, and decorate himself with similar cosmetics and ornaments. It is said that the ornaments themselves became beautiful upon being placed on the transcendental body of the Lord. After decorating himself in this way, the Lord would then look at marble statues of the cows and calf and visit temples of the god or demigods like Lord Shiva. There were many Brahmanas who would come daily to see the Supreme Lord before taking their breakfast. They were anxious to see him, and he welcomed them.
His next duty was to please all kinds of men belonging to the different castes, both in the city and within the palace compound. He made them happy by fulfilling their different desires, and when the Lord saw them happy, he also became very much pleased. The flower garlands, betel nuts, sandalwood pulp, and other fragrant cosmetic articles offered to the Lord would be distributed by him, first to the Brahmanas and elderly members of the family, then to the queens, and then to the ministers, and if there was still some balance, he would engage it for his own personal use. By the time the Lord finished all these daily duties and activities, his charioteer Daruka would come with his wonderful chariot to stand before the Lord with folded hands, intimating that the chariot was ready, and the Lord would come out of the palace to travel. Then the Lord, accompanied by Uddhava and Satyaki, would ride on the chariot just as the sun god rides on his chariot in the morning, appearing with his blazing rays on the surface of the world. When the Lord was about to leave his palaces, all the queens would look at him with feminine gestures. The Lord would respond to their greetings with smiles, attracting their hearts so much that they would feel intense separation from him. Then
the Lord would go to the assembly house known as Sudharma. It may be remembered that the Sudharma assembly house was taken away from the heavenly planets and established in the city of Dwaraka. The specific significance of the assembly house was that anyone who entered it would be freed from the 6 kinds of material pangs, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. These are the wipes of material existence, and as long as one remained in that Sudharma assembly house, he would not be affected by these 6 material whips. The Lord would say goodbye in all the 16,000 palaces, and again he would become one and enter the Sudharma assembly house in procession with other members of the Yadu dynasty. After entering the assembly house, he used to sit on the exalted royal throne and would be seen to emanate glaring rays of transcendental effulgence. In the midst of all the great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna resembled the full moon in the sky surrounded by multi-luminaries. In the assembly house were professional jokers, dancers, musicians, and ballet girls, and as soon as the Lord sat on his throne, they would begin their respective functions to please the Lord and put him in a happy mood. First of all, the jokers would talk in such a way that the Lord and his associates would enjoy their humor, which would refresh the morning mood. The dramatic actors would then play their parts, and the dancing ballet girls would separately display their artistic movements. All these functions would be accompanied by the beating of mirdang drums and the sounds of the veena, flutes, and bells, followed by the sounds of murja, another type of drum. To these musical vibrations, the auspicious sound of the conch shell would be added. The professional singers called sutas and magadas would sing, and others would perform their dancing art. In this way, as devotees, they would offer respectful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the learned brahmanas present in that assembly would chant Vedic hymns and explain them to the audience to the best of their knowledge, and sometimes some of them would recite old historical accounts of the activities of prominent kings. The Lord, accompanied by his associates, would be very much pleased to hear them.
Once upon a time, a person arrived at the gateway of the assembly house who was unknown to all the members of the assembly, and with the permission of Lord Krishna, he was admitted into the assembly by the doorkeeper. The doorkeeper was ordered to present him before the Lord, and the man appeared and offered his respectful obeisance unto the Lord with folded hands. It had happened that when King Jarasandha conquered all other kingdoms, many kings did not bow their heads before Jarasandha, and consequently all of them, numbering 20,000, were arrested and made his prisoners. The man brought before Lord Krishna by the doorkeeper was a messenger from all these imprisoned kings. Being duly presented before the Lord, the man began to relay a message from the kings as follows.
Dear Lord, you are the eternal form of transcendental bliss and knowledge. As such, you are beyond the reach of the mental speculation or vocal description of any materialistic man within this world. A slight portion of your glories can be known by the persons fully surrendered unto your lotus feet. And by your grace only, such persons become freed from all material anxieties. Dear Lord, we are not among these surrendered souls. We are still within the duality and illusion of this material existence. We therefore take shelter of your lotus feet, for we are afraid of the cycle of birth and death. Dear Lord, we think that there are many living entities like us who are eternally entangled in fruitive activities and their reactions. They are never inclined to follow your instructions by performing devotional service, although it is pleasing to the heart and most auspicious for one's existence. On the contrary, they are against the path of Krishna conscious life, and they are wandering within the three worlds, impelled by the illusionary energy of material existence.
Dear Lord, who can estimate your mercy and your powerful activities? You are present always as the insurmountable force of eternal time, baffling the indefatigable desires of the materialists, who are thus repeatedly confused and frustrated. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto you in your form of eternal time. Dear Lord, you are the proprietor of all the worlds and you have incarnated yourself with your plenary expansion, Lord Balaram. It is said that your appearance in this incarnation is for the purpose of protecting the faithful and destroying the miscreants. Under the circumstances, how is it possible that miscreants like Jarasandha can put us into such deplorable conditions of life against your authority? We are puzzled at this situation and cannot understand how is it possible. It may be that Jarasandha has been deputed to give us such trouble because of our past misdeeds, but we have heard from revealed scriptures that anyone who surrenders unto your lotus feet is immediately immune to the reactions of sinful life. We therefore offer ourselves wholeheartedly unto your shelter, and we hope that your Lordship will now give us full protection. We have now come to the real conclusion of our lives. Our kingly positions were nothing but the reward of our past pious activities, just as our suffering imprisonment by Jarasandha is the result of our past impious activities. We realize now that the reactions of both pious and impious activities are temporary, and that we can never be happy in this conditioned life. The material body is awarded to us by the modes of material nature, and on account of this we are full of anxieties. The material condition of life simply involves bearing the burden of this dead body. As a result of fruitive activities, we have thus been subjected to being beasts of burden for these bodies, and being forced by conditional life, we have given up the pleasing life of Krishna consciousness. Now we realize that we are the most foolish persons. We have been entangled in the network of material reactions due to our ignorance. We have therefore come to the shelter of your lotus feet, which can immediately eradicate all the results of fruitive action, and thus free us from the contamination of material pains and pleasures.
Dear Lord, because we are now surrendered soul at your lotus feet, you can give us relief from the entrapment of fruitive action made possible by Jarasandha. Dear Lord, it is known to you that Jarasandha possesses the power of 10,000 elephants, and with this power he has imprisoned us just as a lion a flock of sheep. Dear Lord, you have already fought with Jarasandha 18 times consecutively, out of which you have defeated him 17 times by surpassing his extraordinary powerful position. But in your 18th fight, you exhibited your human behavior, and thus it appeared that you were defeated. Dear Lord, we know very well that Jarasandha cannot defeat you at any time. For your power, strength, resources, and authority are all unlimited. No one can equal you or surpass you. Your apparent defeat by Jarasandha in the 18th engagement with nothing but an exhibition of human behavior. Unfortunately, foolish Jarasandha could not understand your tricks, and he has since then become puffed up over his material power and prestige. Specifically, he has arrested and imprisoned us, knowingly fully that as your devotees we are subordinate to your sovereignty.
The messenger concluded, "Now I have explained the awful position of the kings, and your lordship can consider and do whatever you like. As the messenger and representative of all those imprisoned kings, I have submitted my words before your lordship and presented their prayers to you. All the kings are very anxious to see you so that they can all personally surrender at your lotus feet. My dear Lord, be merciful upon them and act for their good fortune."
Every moment, the messenger of the imprisoned king was presenting their appeal before Lord. The great sage Narada arrived. Because he was a great saint, his hair was dazzling like gold, and when he entered the assembly house, it appeared that the sun god was personally present in the midst of the assembly. Lord Krishna is worshipable master of even the Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Yet as soon as he saw that sages Narada had arrived, he immediately stood up with his ministers and secretaries to receive the great sage and offer his respectful obeisances by bowing his head. The great sages Narada took a comfortable seat, and Lord Krishna worshipped him with a paramphila as required for the regular reception of a saintly person. While trying to satisfy Naradji, Lord Krishna spoke the following words in his sweet and natural voice.
My dear great sage, among the demigods, I think that now everything is well within the three worlds. You are perfectly eligible to travel everywhere in space, in the upper, middle, and low planetary systems of this universe. Fortunately, when we meet you, we can very easily take information from your holiness of all the news of the three worlds. For within this cosmic manifestation of the Supreme Lord, there is nothing concealed from your knowledge. You know everything, and so I wish to question you. Are the Pandavas doing well? And what is the present plan of the king Yudhishthira? Will you kindly let me know what they want to do at present?
The great sage Narad spoke as follows. My dear Lord, you have spoken about the cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord. But I know that you are the all-pervading creator. Your energies are so extensive and inconceivable that even powerful personalities like Brahma, the Lord of this particular universe, cannot measure your inconceivable power. My dear Lord, you are present as the super soul in everyone's heart by your inconceivable potency, exactly like the fire which is present in everyone but which no one can see directly. In conditioned life, all living entities are within the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature. As such, they are unable to see your presence everywhere with their material eyes. By your grace, however, I have seen many times the action of your inconceivable potency, and therefore, when you ask me for the news of the Pandavas, which is not at all unknown to you, I am not surprised at your inquiry.
My dear Lord, by your inconceivable potencies, you create this cosmic manifestation, maintain it, and again dissolve it. Only by dint of your inconceivable potency does this material world, although a shadow representation of the spiritual world, appear to be factual. No one can understand what you plan to do in the future. Your transcendental position is always inconceivable to everyone. As far as I am concerned, I can simply offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. In the bodily concept of existence, everyone is driven by material desires, and thus everyone develops new material bodies one after another in the cycle of birth and death. Being absorbed in such a concept of existence, one does not know how to get out of this engagement of the material body. By your causeless mercy, my Lord, you descend to exhibit your various transcendental pastimes, which are illuminating and full of glory. Therefore, I have no alternative but to offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Brahman, and your pastimes as an ordinary human are another tactical resource, exactly like a play on the stage, in which the actor plays parts different from his own identity. Because the Pandavas are your cousins, you have inquired about them in the role of their well-wisher, and therefore I shall let you know about their intentions. Now please hear me.
First, I may inform you that King Yudhishthira has all material opulences which are possible to achieve in the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka. He has no material opulence for which to aspire, and yet he wants to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice only to get your association and please you. King Yudhishthira is so opulent that he has attained all the opulences of Brahmaloka even on this earthly planet. He is fully satisfied and he does not need anything more. He is full in everything. But now he wants to worship you to achieve your causeless mercy, and I beg to request you to fulfill his desires. My dear Lord, in these great sacrificial performances by King Yudhishthira, there will be an assembly of all the demigods and all the famous kings of the world.
My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead. One who engages himself in your devotional service by the prescribed methods of hearing, chanting, and remembering certainly becomes purified from the contamination of the modes of material nature. And what to speak of those who have the opportunity to see you and touch you directly. My dear Lord, you are the symbol of everything auspicious. Your transcendental name and fame have spread all over the universe, including the higher, middle, and lower planetary systems. The transcendental water which washes your lotus feet is known in the higher planetary system as Mandakini. In the lower planetary systems as Bhogavati, and in this earthly planetary systems as the Ganges. This sacred transcendental water flows throughout the entire universe, purifying wherever it flows.
Just before the great sage Narada arrived in the Sudharma assembly house of Dwarka, Lord Krishna and his ministers and secretaries had been considering how to attack the kingdom of Jarasandha. Because they were seriously considering this subject, Narada proposal that Lord Krishna go to Hastinapur for Maharaj Yudhishthir's great Rajasuya sacrifice did not much appeal to them. Lord Krishna could understand the intentions of his associates because he is the ruler of even Lord Brahma. Therefore, in order to pacify them, he seemingly said to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, you are always my well-wishing confidential friend. I therefore wish to see everything through you because I believe that you counsel in always right. I believe that you understand the whole situation perfectly. Therefore, I am asking your opinion. What should I do? I have faith in you, and therefore I shall do whatever you advise." It was known to Uddhava that Although Lord Krishna was acting like an ordinary man, he knew everything past, present, and future. However, because the Lord wanted to consult with him, Uddhava, in order to render service to the Lord, began to speak. Thus, ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 17th chapter of Krishna, Lord Krishna's daily activities. Hari Bol.
Chapter 71, Lord Krishna in Indraprastha city. In the presence of the great sage Narada and all the other associates of Lord Krishna, Uddhava considered the situation and then spoke as follows. My dear Lord, first of all, let me say that the great sage Narada Muni has requested you to go to Hastinapura to satisfy King Yudhisthira, your cousin, who is making arrangements to perform the great sacrifice known as Rajasuya. I think, therefore, that your lordship should immediately go there to help the king in this great venture. However, although to accept the invitation offered by the sage Narada is quite appropriate, at the same time, my lord, it is your duty to give protection to the surrendered souls. Both purposes can be served if we understand the whole situation. Unless we are victorious over all the kings, no one can perform this Rajasuya sacrifice. In other words, it is to be understood that King Yudhisthira cannot perform this great sacrifice without gaining victory over the belligerent King Jarasandha. The Rajasuya sacrifice can be performed only by one who has gained victory over all directions. Therefore, to execute both purposes, we first have to kill Jarasandha. I think that if we can somehow or another gain victory over Jarasandha, all our purposes will automatically be served. The imprisoned kings will be released, and with great pleasure we shall enjoy the spread of your transcendental fame for having saved the innocent kings whom Jarasandha has imprisoned.
But King Jarasan is not an ordinary man. He has proved a stumbling block even to a great warrior, because his bodily strength is equal to strength of 10,000 elephants. If there is anyone who can conquer this king, he is none other than Bhimsen, because he is also possessing the strength of 10,000 elephants. The best thing would be for Bhimsena to fight alone with him. Then there would be no unnecessary killing of many soldiers. In fact, Jarasan will be very difficult to conquer when he stands with his Akshani division of soldiers. We may therefore adopt a policy more favorable to the situation. We know that the king Jarasan is very much devoted to the Brahmanas and very charitable disposed toward them. He never refused any request from a Brahmana. I think therefore that Bhimsena should approach Jarasan in dress of a Brahmana and beg charity from him, and then personally engage in fighting him. And in order to assure Bhimsena victory, I think that your lordship should accompany him in the fighting take place in your presence. I am sure Bhimsena will immigrate victory for your presence, makes everything impossible possible. Indeed, Lord Brahma created this universe and Lord Shiva destroyed it simply through your influence.
Actually, you create and destroy the entire cosmic manifestation. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are only the superficially visible causes. Creation and destruction are actually performed by the invisible time factor, which is your impersonal representation. Everything is under the control of this time factor. If your invisible time factor can perform such wonderful acts through Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, will not your personal presence help Bhimsena conquer Jarasandha? My dear Lord, when Jarasandha is killed, the queens of the all imprisoned kings will be so joyful as their husbands being released by your mercy that they will all sing your glories. Being as pleased as the gopis were then released from the hands of the Sankachuda. All the great sages, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, the goddess of fortune, Sita, and even your father and mother were all delivered by your causeless mercy. We also have been thus delivered, and we always sing the transcendental glories of your activities.
Therefore, I think that if the killing of Jarasandh is undertaken first, that will automatically solve many other problems. As for the Rajasuya sacrifice arranged in Hastinapur, it will be held either because of the pious activities of the imprisoned kings or the impious activities of Jarasandh. My lord, it appears that you are to go personally to Hastinapur to conquer demonic kings like Jarasandh and Shishupal, to release the pious imprisoned kings, and also to perform the great Rajasuya sacrifice. Considering all these points, I think that your lordship should immediately proceed to Hastinapur.
This advice of Uddhava's was appreciated by all who were present in the assembly. Everyone considered that Lord Krishna's going to Hastinapur would be beneficial from all points of view. The great sage Narada, the elder personalities of the Yadu dynasty, and the supreme personality of Godhead Krishna himself all supported the statement of Uddhava. Lord Krishna then took permission from his father Vasudev and grandfather Ugrasen, and he immediately ordered his servants Daruka and Jaitra to arrange for travel to Hastinapur. When everything was prepared, Lord Krishna specially bid farewell to Lord Balaram and the king of the Yadus, Ugrasen, and after dispatching his queens along with their children and sending their necessary luggage ahead, he mounted his chariot, which bore the flag marked with the symbol of Garuda.
Before starting the procession, Lord Krishna satisfied the great sage Narada by offering him different kinds of articles of worship. Naradji wanted to fall at the lotus feet of Krishna, but because the Lord was playing the part of human being, he simply offered his respects within his mind, and fixing the transcendental form of the Lord within his heart, he left the assembly house by the airways. Usually the sage Narada doesn't walk on the surface of the globe but travels in outer space. After the departure of Narada, Lord Krishna addressed the messenger who had come from the imprisoned kings and told him that they should not be worried, for he would be very soon arranged to kill the king of Magadha, Jarasandha. Thus, he wished good fortune to all the imprisoned kings and the messenger. After receiving this assurance from Lord Krishna, the messenger returned to the imprisoned kings and informed them of the happy news of the Lord's forthcoming visit. All the kings were joyful at the news and began to wait very anxiously for the Lord's arrival.
The chariot of Lord Krishna started for Hastinapur, accompanied by many other chariots, along with elephants, cavalry, infantry, and similar royal paraphernalia. Bugles, drums, trumpets, conch shells, and horns all produced a loud, auspicious sound which vibrated in all directions. The 16,000 queens, headed by the goddess of fortune Rukmini Devi, the ideal wife of Lord Krishna, and accompanied by their respective sons, all followed behind Lord Krishna. They were dressed in costly garments decorated with ornaments, and their bodies were smeared with sandalwood pulp and garlanded with fragrant flowers. Riding on palanquins nicely decorated with silks, flags, and golden lace, they followed their exalted husband, Lord Krishna. The infantry soldiers carried shields, swords, and lances in their hands and acted as royal bodyguards to the queens. In the rear of the procession were the wives and children of all the other followers, and there were many society girls also following. Many beasts of burden, like bulls, buffalo, mules, and asses, carried the camps, bedding, and carpets, and the women who followed were seated in separate palanquins on the back of camels. This panoramic procession was accompanied by the shouts of the people and was full with the display of different colored flags, umbrellas, and whisks, and different varieties of weapons, dress, ornaments, helmets, and armaments. Shining in the sunlight, the procession appeared just like an ocean with high waves and sharks.
In this way, the procession of Lord Krishna's party advanced toward Hastinapur, New Delhi, and gradually passed through the kingdoms of Anarta, Gujarat province, Sauvira, Surat, the great desert of Rajasthan, and then Kurukshetra. Between those kingdoms were many mountains, rivers, towns, villages, pasturing grounds, and mining fields. The procession passed through all these places in its advance. On his way to Hastinapur, the Lord crossed two rivers, the Drishadvati and the Saraswati. Then he crossed the provinces of Panchala and Matsya. In this way, he ultimately arrived at Hastinapur or Indraprastha. The audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not at all commonplace. Therefore, when King Yudhisthira heard that Lord Krishna had arrived in his capital city, Hastinapur, he became so joyful that all his bodily hairs stood on end in great ecstasy, and he immediately came out of the city to properly receive the Lord. He ordered the musical vibration of different instruments and songs, and the learned brahmanas of the city began to chant the hymns of the Vedas very loudly. Lord Krishna is known as Hrishikesh, the master of the senses. And King Yudhisthira went forward to receive him exactly as the senses meet the consciousness of life. King Yudhisthira was the elder cousin of Krishna. Naturally, he had great affection for the Lord, and as soon as he saw him, his heart became filled with great love and affection. He had not seen the Lord for many days, and therefore he thought himself most fortunate to see the Lord present before him. The king therefore embraced Lord Krishna again and again in great affection.
The eternal form of Lord Krishna is the everlasting residence of the goddess of fortune. As soon as the King Yudhisthira embraced him, he became free from all the contaminations of the material existence. He immediately felt transcendental bliss and merged in an ocean of happiness. There were tears in his eyes, and his body shook in ecstasy. He completely forgot that he was living in this material world. After this Bhimsena, he was living in this material, second brother of the Pandavas smiled and embraced Lord Krishna, thinking of him as his own maternal cousin. And thus he also merged in great ecstasy. Bhimsena was so filled with ecstacy that for the time being he forgot his material existence. Then Lord Shri Krishna himself embraced the other three Pandavas, Arjuna, Nakul, and Sahadev. The eyes of all three brothers were inundated with tears, and Arjun embraced Krishna again and again because they were intimate friends. The two younger Pandavas' brother, after being embraced by Lord Krishna, fell down his lotus feet to offer their respects. Lord Krishna thereafter offered his obeisances to the Brahmanas present as well as to the elder members of the Kuru dynasties like Bhishma, Drona, and Dhritarashtra. There were many kings of different provinces, such as Kuru, Sanjay, and Kekai. And Lord Krishna duly reciprocated greetings and respects with them. The professional reciters like the Sutas, Magats, and Bandis, accompanied by the Brahmanas, offered their respectful prayers to the Lord. Performing artists like the Gandharvas as well as the royal jokers began to play their Panava drums, conch shells, kettle drums, veenas, mirdangas, and bugles. Bugles, and then they exhibited their dancing art to please the Lord. Thus, the all-famous Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, entered the great city of Hastinapur, which was opulent in every respect. While Lord Krishna was entering the city, all the people talked amongst themselves about the glories of the Lord, praising his transcendental name, qualities, form, and so on.
The roads, streets, and lanes of Hastinapur were all sprinkled with fragrant water through the trunks of intoxicated elephants. In different places of the city, there were colorful festoons and flags decorating the houses and streets. At important crossroads, there were gates with golden decorations, and at the two sides of the gates, there were golden water jugs. These beautiful decorations glorified the opulence of the city. Participating in this great ceremony, all the citizens gathered here and there, dressed in colorful new clothing and decorated with ornaments, flower garlands, and fragrant scents. The houses were all illuminated by hundreds and thousands of lamps placed in different corners of the cornices, walls, columns, bases, and architraves, and from far away from the rays of the lamps appeared to be celebrating the festival of Diwali, a particular festival observed on the New Year's Day of the Hindu calendar. Within the walls of the houses, fragrant incense was burning, and smoke rose through the windows, making the entire atmosphere very pleasing. On the top of every house, flags were flapping, and the golden water pots kept on the roofs shone brilliantly.
Lord Krishna thus entered the city of the Pandavas, enjoyed the beautiful atmosphere and slow proceeding ahead. When the young girls in every house heard that Lord Krishna, the only object worth seeing, was passing on the road, they were very eager to see this all famous personality. Their hairs loosened and their tightened saris became slack due to their hastily rushing to see him. They gave up their householder engagement, and those who were lying in bed with their husband immediately left them and came directly down onto the street to see Lord Krishna. The procession of the elephant, horses, chariots, and infants was very crowded. Some of the girls, being unable to see properly in the crowd, got up on the roofs of the houses, pleased to see the Lord Sri Krishna passing with his thousands of queens. They showered flowers on the procession, embraced Lord Krishna within their minds, and gave him a hearty reception. When they saw him in the midst of his many queens, like a full moon, situated, administrated, many luminaries, they began to talk amongst themselves.
One girl said to another, "My dear friend, it is very difficult to guess what kind of pious activities these queens have performed, for they are always enjoying the smiling face and loving glances of Krishna. While Lord Krishna was thus passing on the road, at intervals, some of the citizens who were all rich, respectable, and freed from sinful activities presented auspicious articles to the Lord, just to offer him a reception to the city. Thus they worshipped him as humble servitors. When Lord Krishna entered the palace, all the ladies there were overwhelmed with affection just upon seeing him. They immediately received Lord Krishna with glittering eyes, expressing their love and affection for him, and Lord Krishna smiled and accepted their feelings and gestures of reception. When Kunti, the mother of Pandavas, saw the nephew Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she was overpowered by love and affection.
She at once got up from her bedstead and appeared before him with her daughter in law Draupadi, and in maternal love and affection she embraced him. As Maharaja Yudhishthir brought Krishna within the palace, the king became so confused in his jubilation that he practically forgot what he was to do at that time to receive Krishna and worship him properly. Lord Krishna delightfully offered his respects and obeisances to Kunti ji and other elder ladies of the palace. His younger sister Subhadra ji was also standing there with Draupadi ji, and both offered their respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. At the indication of her mother-in-law, Draupadi ji brought clothing, ornaments, and garlands, and with this paraphernalia, they received the queens Rukmini ji, Satyabhama ji, Bhadra ji, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda.
Prabhupada is not saying
Okay.
after the names, so just read as Prabhupada is written.
Lakshmana and the devoted Satya. These principal queens of Lord Krishna were first received, and then the other queens were also offered a proper reception. King Yudhishthir arranged for Krishna's rest and saw to it that all who came along with him, namely his queens, soldiers, ministers, and secretaries, were comfortably situated. He had arranged that they would experience a new feature of reception every day while staying as guests of the Pandavas.
It was during this time that Lord Sri Krishna, with the help of Arjun, followed the fire god Agni to devour the Khandav forest for his satisfaction. During the forest fire, Krishna saved the demon Mayasur, who was hiding in the forest. Upon being saved, Mayasur, being Mayasur felt obliged to the Pandavas and Lord Krishna, and he constructed a wonderful assembly house within the city of Hastinapur. To please King Yudhishthir, Lord Krishna remained in the city of Hastinapur for several months. During his stay, he enjoyed strolling here and there. He used to drive on chariots with Arjun, and many warriors and soldiers used to follow them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 71st chapter of Krishna, Lord Krishna in the Indraprastha city.
So, my dear devotees and assembled devotees online, this ends our 1 hour opportunity and service to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, we thank you so much for allowing us to come and read your Krishna book. And as always, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vancha Kalpadrubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book. So keep coming back. Next Sunday, 4:30. And what's the name of the chapter? Yeah, the liberation of Jarasandha. Haribol.